Hey everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, we are simply going to soak it in. This. And work on a Siberian fir. I've been working a lot in the last year or two with the owner of a Christmas tree farm who has all kinds of different Fraser and Douglas fir, Korean fir, and Siberian. And he, of course, in the Christmas tree world, has been growing trees and trying to get that conical shape, kind of perfection, that real perfect cone-shaped tree for people to chop down and use for their Christmas tree, their holiday tree. After interviewing him and talking to him about the trees and how they grow for my research to just learn more about pines, because I had more deciduous trees than pines, he was really fascinated about the discussion. And one of the things he heard the most is when we talked about wanting some movement in the tree. So he texted me one day and he said, "Hey Dave, there's this tree on the property that I think you would really like. It's got some great movement." It was a great text, and so I said, "I'll come now." And so I went over to his farm and I dug out this Siberian. I believe a lawnmower at some point might have given it this scar. So there's a bit of a scar here. It was growing real crooked compared to all the other Christmas trees and didn't have as much going on. And he said, "I think you might like it." And of course, I loved it. And here it is. So all of last year, it was sitting in this big pot with a lot of pumice. And today's the day we are going to put it into a bonsai pot. My initial thinking, if this is big enough, is going to be into this oval pot here. We'll see if it's going to work. So it's time to dig into the pumice. It should be a pretty quick repot because it's not a lot of soil beyond the pumice. There's going to be some natural soil from when I dug it up at the farm, but let's dig it in. Let's dig in and see what we got. Good to see some big chunks of mud falling off of this. And there's a lot of pumice that is not too degraded, so I'll be able to recycle a lot of the soil. I'm gonna go get my gloves on and we'll continue. Has a lot of the pumice tucked into the root system right here around some of the edges, but there's an awful lot of the kind of the original soil from the farm that's still in there. So we're going to continue to rake away, get some of this pumice loosened up. We're going to salvage a lot of this pumice for future use, maybe even wash it up and put some of it back into this planting. But we got some muddy sections right here on this side for sure. We're going to go ahead and continue to rake away and see what we got. But you can see there's plenty of fine feeder roots here, so we'll be able to trim some roots back and we'll be able to tuck this into a bonsai tree pot and have a lot more control over the watering of this guy. I would water this thing probably a little too much last year. This is what's always great about a repot, to see what you have going. And the top few inches of my pot was strictly 100% pumice. So and the water would drain through really easily around the edges. But I had to water it really well because I had to make sure that this center part here was still getting moist, right? But now as I'm digging in here, although I did water this one last night, so this is a little bit, you know, nice and wet soil, not too gunky mucky, but I wonder if I over watered it last year at times, thinking it was going right through the pumice, but then of course forgetting how thick of the tree had some muck or the dirt in here. So knowing your pots and knowing your trees, knowing what's in there, knowing how much drainage you have, super important. So I hope I didn't, you know, make the tree less strong because of that, but I have some new shoots that are starting to come out right here. They're just opening up in the last week or so that I noticed, so I want to get this thing in a bonsai pot before they elongate too much. This is the 30th of April, so this is the last day of the 4th month of our year, and boy, from here on out, May, and all the trees in Minnesota are just coming to life. They've been wanting to bud since we hit 80 3 weeks ago, and we've had some bud and then stall out a little bit, but now things are looking really good. So here's the initial look. I'm going to probably go dump this into the pond and clean out some more of these roots, and then we're going to look at the pot. So just as a first glimpse, these roots almost all fit into the pot. So I have a real big root over here, a big kind of almost tap root here, and a bigger root off to the side here, and then one that's coming right out here, but then it's got a weird knob and then it goes down, but I think we'll be able to clean that up a little bit. But it looks like it'll probably fit in this pot pretty well. The question is the angle that I end up choosing, because if I have it at the angle it kind of was, then it won't fit in this pot. I might be constricted to how the root system fits for this year, for this pot. But it has kind of a neat lean. It's almost leaning too far forward, so I can go like that with it. I think we can go ahead and use that. Now this is the scar side, so we also have this as an option. The tree is not as inviting that way to my eye. I did do a little wiring last year, as you can see. I got some wire in the branches to get some downward movement. But we'll clean off some of these roots and see where we're at. So the goldfish are swimming around in the pond. They're starting to warm up. You know, we've had some cool nights, and so they haven't been as active, but they're starting to move around a little bit here. I don't want to muddy up their pond too much, but it's nice to have a natural pond here where I always have some water so I can clean out my roots. Taking a step back from the tree, I kind of like this angle. Want it to go this way still. We got this branch coming off here as the first primary branch. There's a little bit of a reverse taper here, so I'm hoping this branch will thicken this up over the time. But it's also, we've got this wound here, so there's just a lot of stuff going on here. But for right now, I think I'm going to keep it at this angle. So I got a few roots protruding here. Got some little extra space here. We can kind of move in the pot a little bit with some trimming. But we have to get rid of some of these roots and clean it up just a little bit. So initially here, just making some cuts to kind of get a little bit more compact root structure. Got some roots that are not as in good shape as the others. Got some that are wrapping around. We got this big thick guy right here. So this one wants to come up here. It goes down and then it comes up here and goes up here. There's a place where it goes back down. right in here. So I'm going to cut that off right there. This back over here looks like there's a little bit of damage to it. I'm going to need my bigger knob cutter for that one. And it has some roots feeding down below. In fact. So we might lose this root completely. I think we might. It's up high. There's not a lot of fine feeder roots off of that one. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take this guy off right here. See, it comes up high, and the angle I want to use it in the pot, it's just too high of an angle. So I'm going to cut it back to here first. So there, I just took that off. Not a drastic prune. And the root is facing down from right there, so I could leave it there and see if we get some more radial roots growing. And again, we have some longer roots here. We want our roots to grow out, not down. So we got a lot of roots down here that are just kind of facing down. Put it back in the pot. So yeah, if I put this at an angle, this other root is going up, and it's not. I can go back to here with it. And that can still grow some roots down from that point. I got a little root right there growing straight up. I'm going to get rid of that one. And I think that's all I'm going to do for today. I want to get some soil in here. I'm going to put this in this pot. And then we'll find our true angle. And we'll be good with that. So I need to wire this up. I need to put a little bit of screen in the bottom of the pot, and we'll be able to get this thing off to the races in a bonsai pot. So I've separated most of the dirt from the pumice. Now I'm going to use the hose to wash off the pumice. We can recycle some of the pumice. This pumice was only used last year, so leading up to now. So it's almost like new. Gonna get some of these bigger chunks of dirt out of here, and we're gonna recycle it. I'm gonna go ahead and mix it around with this soil. I have a mix of about 50% lava rock, 50% akadama that was already in the bucket, and now I'm adding my pumice, and I'm going to have more pumice than the other two. So we're going to have about 50% pumice, 50% lava, and 50% of the akadama. With the pine tree not wanting to soak it with water and keep it in water and keep it as moist, I wish I had a little bit more lava rock, but I think the pumice will be a good substitute for now. Here I have a nice 50% pumice, 50% lava, and 50% akadama. We're ready to use it on the pine tree. I've got my screens in there So these holes are extra drain holes in the legs of these plastic pots. That's why I kind of like them. They get extra drainage. Besides the built-in screens here, we've got drainage holes there, but you got to cover them up or the lava rock and stuff is going to flow right through there. We've got our wire, we got our tie downs. We're going to put in our base. And then we have our tree. We're going to find that magic spot. Not a whole lot of choices with this one. I am going to go with this as the front. We are going to see the scar, but it tells a story. The story for me right now is that it was possibly hit by a lawnmower out at the tree farm where my son has worked for the last 5 years. And so Neil has graciously given me access to this tree, and he didn't even charge me anything for it. So here we go. Some big roots that these wires are going to dig into if I wire them right down to the roots. This one I'm not so worried about because it's going to be, it could be above the surface someday, so it might be visible. But I'm going to go and see if I have some extra tubing so we can put some protection on here so we don't damage these roots. I was able to find some of my recycled tubing, so I'm going to go ahead and make 4 so I can protect the tree's roots from any damage from the wire. So definitely on this one. It's going over this root system right here. Definitely on this back one, because this back one is going to be possibly going over this back root that you can't see, and I will get a close-up here in just a moment. So we got that one, and we'll put it on this back one as well, just in case that crosses. This one doesn't seem to be like it's going to cross very many wires. I brought the camera in close because I want to show you guys a method of tying in a tree when you have maybe not the best connection points. I've got the protection for going over some of these bigger roots, but I've got some loose sections over here that might not grab as much as I'd like it to. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to add another piece of wire. So what I'm doing is I'm making a little loop here, and then I'm going to go ahead and spin that around a couple of times. So we make a little loop here. And wherever I want to end up, I'm going to have this wire dangling here where this ends up, which is on this side. So here's my 1, 2, 3, 4 wires, and I have this guy right here that's going to be last. Okay, so I want the tree where it's going to go squished in with all this soil. I'm going to put a little bit of soil in here in some of these gaps. So when I move this around, I can shove a little soil into these crevices here to make sure that we get not a lot of air pockets when this is done. So this is where this little extra piece dangles here, and this will be last. Our first connection is going to be this way. I'm going to go right over this root right here, and this has got the protection of the wire right there. I'm going to bring this one in. I'm going to move away some roots as I can, and we're going to bring this in, and we're going to create that first twist. I'm going to lift up and then twist down and let the wire twist up, twist. Lift up, then twist. So the more we can lift up and get some looseness down here, when we twist the wire, it just brings it down right to the pot. Okay, so now that's holding up the tree a little bit, but certainly not where we want it. But now we're going to go to the next side. Okay, so I'm going to give it another twist and another twist, and now we have some loose wire up on top. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect that to the next wire here. But before I connect it, I want to bring it around this back side of the root back here, because I want that to go over a really nice solid piece of bark there with this protection on here. Come to over here, and we're going to go ahead and move it this way a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and put these two together. And grab those and twist. I'm pushing down on the tree, lifting up and twisting. So I have this original connection point, and I have this second connection point. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. Okay. And I'm going to twist the tree around. I'm going to double check if it's where I want it. Kind of like that. So where this soil has to be in the back, so as I move this and want the different angle, I get some soil in there. Okay. So now I have this left over here. We're going to bring this one over this way. Looks like I need a little more wire on here, don't I? So not much to catch there, but enough to grab with the pliers and twist it up a little bit and bring this all together. Now I have this last piece of wire here that's going to go over to my loose one right here. Now my loose one is going to touch the main branch. So I do have one more tube. And where did my last tube go? Didn't lose it in the pot, did I? Kind of like when you're performing surgery, right? The doctors, did they ever lose any instruments inside the bodies? Let's go find some more tubing. After going in the garage and looking for more tubing, I came back out because I couldn't find the extra tubing. So I said, you know what? It is like a surgeon leaving something in here. It's got to be in here. Yeah, there it is right there. All right, so this extra piece is going to go right here on this extra piece. Now ideally I would have left a little bit more length to all this tubing from the get-go. I cut them a little bit short, but I managed to get it where I need it to be. Okay, so I'm going to put this last piece of tubing on here. If I could get it down to the bottom, here we go. So remember, this last piece of wire was twisted on that first piece, and that's going to come and meet this piece, and these two pieces are going to come together right here, and we're going to secure this whole thing right now with these two wires right there. We got the tubing to protect the tree. We're going to twist this thing together. Cut off the extra. Put that down. This is that empty part of the bark back here in the back that we hope will maybe grow some more roots, but it won't happen right overnight. We got some extra long roots here. Cut a couple of these shorter. We're going to tuck them in here. Got one sticking straight up right here. We don't want that. These can lay down. And then we're just going to add some more soil. So now this is a little bit wet soil because I washed the pumice. So when you have dry soil, even when you have wet soil, one thing you can do when you have, if you're putting this into a box or putting this into a big pot like this, is that if you hold on to the tree and pound the pot, soil will settle in there. But because we have wet soil, it's not going to do that a ton. So we're definitely going to have to go ahead and get some of this air pockets tamped down by our chopstick. Your soil is not going to wiggle down into the air pockets as well when the soil is wet, so we definitely like to do this with dry soil typically. But as I wiggle around, we are certainly getting soil to sink on down there into the spots where we need them. So we can see a little bit of the plastic on the back side of this pine tree, but it will be the back side. And as I get some more sphagnum moss, I will put some more sphagnum moss on here to give it a little bit more of a top dressing, and then you won't see that. Got to be careful with our pines and our sphagnum moss, so we don't get a lot of sphagnum moss growing up on the trunk and affect the bark. But I will give some sphagnum moss on here for just the nice aesthetics, holding in that moisture as we always do with most of our trees, especially deciduous trees. With the pine, I wouldn't have to do that here. We wouldn't have to. It'd be more of a filter. Instead of holding in moisture, because we don't want to hold in a ton of moisture with our pines, but it would hold the moisture into the top layer. The bottom layer wouldn't be affected as much, but it would certainly promote some more roots up on the surface more if we had some moss. But if I don't have any moss, it'll wait for a while. So we're going to give this a good watering, and then we'll take a peek at it. We're going to give it some more water so we get a little more of the powdery substance out of the pot. Those big drain holes at the bottom will help promote losing that powdery substance. One of the things I learned last year, most of the trees that I lost, I didn't do a good job of washing my soil before as I was sifting and washing my soil. And if I didn't rinse out and really water those trees really well, some of those powdery areas kind of stuck there. It's pretty clear water there, still a little mucky, a little murky, but not horrible. Now I have this one root that I chopped right there that's exposed, so if I put some sphagnum moss up here and put that around here, that'll help promote that root growth so it won't dry out and die back, so I might have to do that. So let's get a little bit tighter shot of this tree in the shade without such harsh sunshine, and we'll take a peek at this tree from top to bottom. So we have quite a severely leaning tree, so I don't know if I was going for that much of a lean at first, but for right now, for this planting, we'll see what happens. So I could bring this branch down with my wiring a little bit further. We get some branch wiring in this one. We can bring this one around. So what I was really excited about is this branch right here, new buds right there. Let me zoom in on that. So right here, we've got this nice branch right here, splits into two right here. We've got this growth right there. So there's a nice new bit of growth right there. So that's really super exciting. There's some growth back here on these lower ones. Panning up the tree just a little bit, we've got all this nice little growth. They're just starting to elongate right here, so I think we're in good shape. There's buds back here, there's buds back here and here. And if you can see right here, so here we go, we got all these buds out here, but look right here. So here was a cut point last year. I've got this bud coming right here, and I've got this bud coming out right here. So always wonderful to see back budding on a tree, right? This is back budding on old wood. This right here, this spot right here is opposite of this spot, so we knew it was a section where branches might come out. Now these are opposing each other, but maybe I get rid of this someday and this becomes the new branch that I keep. We'll see. And I can bring the compact the tree and bring the the growth all shorter with ramification closer in instead of out here further. But we'll just have to see how this grows this year. Always love to see new growth. So we have a tree in a pot. Now this tree may be a little top heavy, a little tall for this pot right here on a really windy day. This is a plastic pot, but there's a lot of bonsai soil in here. I might put a rock on this side just for extra stability, or maybe 2 rocks at first while this is getting established. We may end up cutting off this branch right here. We might do that next season and make this the new leader. This was going to be the leader, but maybe this will become the new leader. This is growing nice and straight up right now. This could even be a leader someday. This one also could be. So we'll do some more manipulation as the tree grows. I want to see what it's going to do in the bonsai soil after having about 50% farm soil and 50% pumice. Now we've got, again, 50% pumice and then 25% akadama, 25% lava rock, and we have ourselves a new pine tree in a bonsai pot. It's one of my bigger trees, grown in the ground for probably at least 5 years. The Christmas tree farm usually goes through their trees in 8 to 10 years, so it's probably pushing that 5-6 year growth rate. And because it was damaged, it probably stunted its growth a little bit more. So I'm pretty confident it was in the ground for 5 to 6 years. And when he gets his trees, they're generally 2 to 3 years when they start. So this could be pushing a 10-year-old tree. Just for sake of rounding to 10, it could reasonably be a 10-year-old tree. Super exciting. So we're going to put this in a nice shaded area for a couple of weeks here. We're going to make sure it's not getting this direct sun. Tomorrow forecast to be 80 and sunny. I don't want to burn this thing out by any stretch. It has been in the sun. It's been an outdoor tree all winter long, so it's not going to have too much burn. But I just repotted it. So we're going to take care of it, put it in maybe a partial sun through some filtered sun through the tree branches for a couple hours of the day, but it's going to mainly be in the shade. So there you have it. We have a Siberian fir. It's time for a couple of updates on the trees we've been working on. We had the Minnesota Forest number 2 that we put into this pot a few weeks back. And as we get a little bit closer, we can see the back trees, the pine trees, all kinds of shoots ready to grow. We did a little trimming of some of the branches since we shot the video. And then the forest. So we have a poplar on the end. This turned out to be a maple tree. I don't even think I knew that when I put it in the ground. And then sure enough, this guy right here is another maple. We've got a poplar in the middle. We've got a poplar here. We've got a little bit of a elm right here because we put those little elms in front. We got some little bit of leaf structure on these guys. And then we got the maple in the back that's blooming out. And then the poplars in the back with some new buds as well. So it's a little bit more mixed forest than I anticipated, because I couldn't tell with just bark alone if it was a pine or a poplar, because they're looking pretty similar this spring. But we'll have some nice mixture of colors throughout the year, the pine trees in the back. And that's update number 1. Everything is leafing out so far. We've had a lot of gray weather the last several weeks here. After our 85-degree day on April 3rd or 4th, it was just been gray and rainy, and we've had 2 days of sunshine now, and so this will be ready to put in the sun here in the next couple of days. Probably after the 85-degree day, we'll put it in the sunshine or partial sun. This wasn't a repot this spring, but there's the first Minnesota forest with most of the leaves doing a good job of budding. The last tree to bud out in this forest is the ash trees in the back there. The black ash or green ash, I forget which one we have in our yard. Those are seedlings from a couple years ago. They're always the last to bud out. We always get the maples and in my case some of the poplars here to bud out first. We did put a mugo pine into a pot a few weeks back, and it's hard to tell new growth on a mugo pine right now. I do have a little bit of dieback here. I don't know if it's from the stress from the transplant or not, but the mugo pine seems to be liking its new spot. And then here's my other forest back there. We got the larch forest, and we have the leaves pushing out on 3 of the 5 trees. We got the big evidence of green over there, a little bit lighter on the tree right here, and there's some little tiny ones on tree number 3, but 4 and 5 we seem to be having a little bit of issues with. We'll see. Again, some trees are budding out a little slower than others. We'll have to see on that one. And if you remember, you can go back and look at the birch forest. We put that in that green plastic tray right there, and the birch forest, it's got all kinds of nice leaf structure, looking really, really nice. In a couple of weeks, you're not going to be able to see where the tree was chopped anymore, and we'll have some good leaves surrounding the birch forest. So that's the birch forest, a couple of months of growth after our repot early in or late February, early April, or early March rather. I think we did that in early March. Back in the top of the upper pond waterfall is the Korean pine that we put into that white pot a while back. Everything's looking okay right now. Not seeing a ton of shoots pushing out at the moment, but we're looking okay. And then on this one right here, we have the weeping willow in the peninsula, and that one's doing okay too. We got lots of growth. It's been in the sun a little bit, and everything's starting to ramify. We worked on a couple of barberries this year, and I transplanted 4 of them. That one's not doing so well. That's the sideways one that was kind of so-so, right? But then this one has got some really nice green leaves that are poking through, so that one's looking pretty good. So we're getting some growth on the barberry. One of the other barberries that I put together this year into a new pot, no new leaves pushing out yet. I'm a little concerned about this one. We'll have to wait. We'll see a couple more weeks, and now this warmth and sunshine, we'll see what happens. The other barberry has the purple leaf color, and it's got purple leaves through most of it, about 75%. Seems to be pushing out some leaves. The big branch on the right is pretty dead. It's probably going to be cut off in the future anyway. Big old messy gnarly multi-trunk bottom, a lot of dead wood here. We'll work on that over the years. But that barberry is pushing out some new growth. That's fun. Our last update for today is not really an update from this spring, but last fall, before I could put this monster into the cold frame, I had to adjust the bottom box. I shrunk it by about 1 inch or 2. And by doing that, I could fit it in the door of the cabin cold frame. But just to show you that everything worked out for me, even after the cold frame lost heat for a day. Now again, this was probably grafted with a local variety maple, so it's not 100% a Japanese maple. It's got these nice purple colored leaves, long and narrow foliage. And we've got that nice, not necessarily sacrificial branch down there, but that's getting long, and we're just going to let that go and thicken up the trunk some more. We're going to probably air layer this later in the season, so be ready for an air layer video in about a month or 2. When these leaves harden off, and we know that we're ready for an air layer probably in June, we'll probably do that. Maybe the end of May, June, we'll air layer a couple of spots on the maple. We'll have some nice thick trunks for some new maples. What an absolutely gorgeous day today. The birds are chirping. It's about 60 degrees, light wind. This has been phenomenal. Got the pine tree ready to go in a bonsai pot. We got some updates for you, so a lot of things are shooting out slow but sure on some of them. A couple that I'm a little concerned about, but we'll just keep an eye on them. We'll keep them watered. We'll start fertilizing a little more heavier with some of the varieties here very, very soon. Some have some fertilizer already on them, and we're just going to watch them grow, right? Hey, thanks for joining me. You know what? We just hit over 720 subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing. If you haven't yet, subscribe. I'd certainly appreciate that. Hit like, tell your friends about the channel, and we got more coming up, right? We've got some air layering to do this summer. We're probably going to air layer about 2 or 3 of my trees that have some pretty big branching that we're going to try. I've only done thin ones. This is going to be kind of a fun experiment. So air layering on the docket for a little bit later on. Maybe a few more repots. I think I'm almost done for the year. Hey, thanks for watching. Thanks again for being a subscriber, and I do appreciate you sending comments in, questions. I love communicating with the people who are into bonsai. I could do it forever. I could do it all day long. So hey, send me some information. All right, questions, comments, concerns. I love to hear it. Take care of you. Take care of your bonsai, and we will catch you on the next one very soon.